Uh, with that, I would like to open the stage for our wonderful facilitator today, Yankee Lee. Yankee co-founded Open House AI, which is a prop tech startup that changed the real estate industry by changing how homes are built and sold, leveraging advanced technology previously accessible to only large corporations. Before building his venture, Yankee helped fintech unicorn company experience tremendous growth through advocating new revenue streams and by establishing best practices and operational systems. Yankee is also a chartered professional accountant and a project management professional. He has led many successful projects from all over the world, leveraging technology to solve business problems. He's always been an entrepreneur at heart and believes in giving back to the community and mentors at different incubator and accelerators across GTA. He's also the program advisor at YSpace. Yankee, super lucky to have you here facilitating the session today, and I flip the mic over to you.
Thank you, Alina, and good to see a big crowd here tonight. Like Alina mentioned, I'm going to invite you guys to turn on your camera and join the conversation. If we make this more interactive, is actually much more beneficial for yourself. But I do have a PowerPoint deck, so we'll start there. Okay, so just want to double check, Alina, you can see my screen? Yeah, awesome. All right. So thank you for that wonderful introduction, Alina. So this is YSpace Founder Fundamental Session for navigating the entrepreneurial landscape. And so Alina already did an introduction on myself. I actually have a finance and accounting background. Studied it, got my designations, but never really did accounting as an occupation. I wanted to get into tech, so went into financial systems right away. Okay, so just a little bit about the agenda today. So we'll talk a little bit about my own journey and some of the lessons learned there. Entrepreneurship as a career path, the entrepreneurship mindset, value proposition, and business planning, and then setting up yourself for success. So I'm sure we'll have a variety of people at varying degrees of entrepreneurship. Maybe some of you have been in business for 20 years and some of you are thinking of starting out, right? So I'm hoping that wherever stage you're at, that you get some benefit of this session. Okay. And feel free to ask questions. So I'll keep an eye on the chat if someone has a question and I'm going through this. I think Alina will also keep an eye out for me. If there's a question, you can just let me know so that I don't go past too far without tackling the question. Okay. Great. So yeah, I was co-founder of a company called the Open House AI. We made software for the home building industry, letting them know their customers better, more deeply, and also getting them to more operational efficiency. So we made software in that specific space. Throughout my journey, I've gone through raising money from investors, building prototype with the customer, built a team, very talented team, mostly of technical people. And then we actually went through UX expansion, and then actually COVID jumped right into that picture and kind of threw our plans in a wrench. So that was exciting and stressful at the same time. But we were able to grow, and in the U.S. and now nowadays. At the time, most of our customers are still in the U.S. and so we're proud of the growth that we've done. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship as a career path. Learned so much about it. I wouldn't take it back for anything. It's allowed me to grow personally and professionally as well. Like it's a journey like no other. So I'm going to touch on a little bit and it's not for everyone though. So keep that in mind. So some of the pros, you get to work for yourself, right? Like we see social media, those that work for themselves, how great it is. We see that lavish lifestyle. Just keep in mind, social media, it's take it with a grain of salt. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. So um, you're working for yourself, but you're also working really hard, and don't get too caught up in like the entrepreneurial dream and looking at others and saying, oh wow, I can just get that. So but you are working for yourself, right? And you are also the captain of your own ship, right? So you get to call the shots. Um, Again, there's pros and cons there, right? So you get to navigate the ship, and your team's going to be looking to you for answers as well. And sometimes we don't always have those answers, right? So can we handle being the captain of our own ship, right? And you get to live your own mission and vision. More and more people today now want purpose driven work, right? They want to their what they do to matter and have a purpose, right? So when you're an entrepreneur, you can live that yourself. If you built your company because you want to help kids learn math better, for example, right? That's your mission, and you have your own way to go about that, and you get to live it, which is very satisfying in itself. So some of the cons, it's of course there's an element of uncertainty, right? Will it work? No one knows. We can try, but there's no guarantee it'll work. It's definitely not the same as a very comfortable paycheck from a company, right? So there's that uncertainty element to it. It is also true what they say. It's lonely at the top. Sometimes you don't have anything to bounce off anyone, and sometimes you have to make that decision yourself and navigate, for the team. And you got to come in, you got to appear confident, and you got to charge forward, right? So it's great if you have partners, but partners is kind of that double-edged sword where, like, let's say you guys don't agree, then what happens, right? Um, if you guys are, of course, a cohesive team, that's the ideal scenario as well. And then, work life is unbalanced. That's just the reality of it, right? You might, especially at the beginning, find yourself working long hours. Payback may not be there yet. You're stressing out, and you're trying to set your business up for success, but it's taking a lot of time, and there's a lot of learning that goes with it as well, right? Okay, so next I want to touch a little bit upon the entrepreneurial mindset. So it's about fit too, right? So you kind of have the entrepreneurial mindset if you are very action oriented. How many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, this would be a great idea," or "This would be a good venture," or "This would be this," but 9 out of 10 people don't actually carry it out, right? So lots of talkers out there, right? So if you're action oriented, that's great. That's a great mindset. And a solution for your customer, like be solution oriented and care about who you're trying to serve, right? And I put in brackets, not you, is because sometimes an entrepreneur will think, oh well, I like it, so obviously everyone else would like it. I'm just going to build this to sell this, without jumping into some of the research or getting feedback or things like that, right? So um, be solution oriented, but for your customer, who are you trying to serve, right? An entrepreneurial mindset tends to be adaptable. They're always looking for that feedback, always looking to tweak, always looking to get better. And they really, they leave their ego at the door. It's not about you being right. It's about who am I serving? Am I serving them effectively? And then, charging them money for it. Like that's essentially the business, right? You're solving someone's problem and then getting paid to do that. But sometimes being adaptable means you need to tweak your solution a little bit. Okay, so I'll give you an example that I actually heard of just recently is People know about those Betty Crocker cake mixes. Like it's basically a powder in a box you can buy at the grocery store. You take it home, you mix it with water and eggs, and then you put it in the oven. You bake a cake, right? Everyone knows that, right? And so initially, when they built this product, they had egg protein in it. So all you needed to do was put water and put it in the oven, and the cake comes out, right? So they weren't selling for some reason. So they did some deep discovery in that situation, and they discovered, well, people thought that that was too much like cheating, and so they felt guilty buying that product. And so from that feedback, Betty Parker actually removed the milk uh, powder, not the milk powder, egg powder from the contents. And so then the instructions were to add your own eggs and water, and then people started buying it. You know, that's such an interesting story there. So being adaptable, listening, it's not about you again listening to your customer and giving people what they want, right? And then you also have to somewhat be a generalist. And what I mean by that is, you might be trained in a certain lane. You might be an accountant, you might be a salesperson, you might be a marketer. But when you go into this entrepreneurial journey, you gotta be some of everything. Be ready to learn and learn quickly, right? And you're gonna be dabbling in different areas. So expect that to happen. If you want to stay comfortable, then that journey might not be for you. But if you're looking forward to grow yourself and learn, absolutely a great journey. Okay, so an entrepreneurial mindset also tries to identify where is there a market gap, right? So where in the market can there be underserved? So let's say you like coffee, right? And you notice that within a certain radius, there's no coffee shops there. There are coffee shops everywhere, but you can identify a gap that, hey, you know, within this area, there's no coffee shop. So, then you're serving the market in some way if you were to create a coffee shop as your, entrepreneurial journey, being able to identify that gap. It takes some really paying attention to what the market is looking for. Then you ask yourself, can I fill that gap, right? And then it comes down to the execution of it. Right? So once you've identified, sometimes a lot of people think, they say if I need a great idea, I need a great idea. Sometimes it's not about the idea, it's about the problem. So try to keep that in mind. It's about what problem that you're solving. So let's say in this radius of, I don't know, like 10 miles, there's no coffee shop, then you're solving the coffee shop problem for the residents in that area, right? So you're solving a problem, right? So it's not necessarily, the novelty of the idea that gets you onto that journey. Here's an example. So Starbucks, they found it kind of like the high end mass market, high end coffee drinks, right? They came into it, and pretty much took over that market. A long time ago, typically you had McDonald's, and then you had Tim Hortons a long time ago, and then Starbucks came along and then kind of carved their own high end market, out of the overall coffee market. What I like about this picture too is you see on the bottom there those cake pops. Who knew that people wanted those cake on a stick? Like for people that are on the go, they don't want to sit down with a plate and knife and fork to eat cake. They wanted to carry it to go. Cake pops, right? So, someone just created that and tested it out into the market, and apparently there's demand. Okay, so we talked about, identifying a gap in the market. So, I mean, you don't have to be Starbucks. Starbucks is a very big example, right? But you can you can create your own local coffee shop as long as you see that there's an opportunity, right? So who's to say you can't open your own small coffee shop in this place that maybe is underserved in terms of coffee? So you can absolutely see that opportunity and move forward with that. Okay, so any questions so far? I want to open that up to the group just to see if there are any questions.
Any questions so far? There are none in the chat, but I see a hand is raised. Goldie, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for your expertise today. Maybe you want to talk more about this after, but I know you mentioned open AI, and I know you just talked about having a solution for a problem, being that gap in the market and creating success there, and would love to know, what does OpenAI contribute to the market? What gaps does it fill? I would love to hear your journey or expertise in that area on how that looks like in real life.
Okay, yeah, we'll actually get back to that later in the presentation, so we'll revisit that later on.
Right.
Great. Any other questions?
So Mina is
Um,
asking, is there a book that you recommend for basic entrepreneurs?
uh, yes. Yes. There's one called Crossing the Chasm. I think it's has to be basic for everyone. Uh, it's great crossing the. I'm going to type it in the chat. Um, really great. Like it talks about how to get into the market and kind of like it actually sets you up for that founder's mindset or entrepreneurial mindset. So really love the book itself. Definitely worth more than one read. Okay, and Amma, I think.
Yes, hello, hi. Thank you for some of this information. What I want to find out is, what if you're trying to solve a problem and the customers don't realize it's a problem, or they don't see it's a problem yet? I don't know if that makes
Yeah, that's
sense.
Yeah, that's very challenging, definitely. And in
Yes.
that kind of case, then there's some education component that's required before you convince someone, hey, you actually do have a problem, right? Because if
Okay.
they don't know, they don't know it, right? So um, your job then is really convince them that there's a better way than how it's happening today, right? And this is how it could be better, right? No one thought mail was a problem until email came, right? Right. So you have to. There's an education component, so you have to um, educate your customer base, right? And once they see the benefit and they experience it, then they're like, whoa, they get all wide-eyed, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's very hard. Like it's you have to create general awareness on people having that problem, right? So it's definitely hard to tackle. So I'll continue on for now. Happy to take more questions as we go. So value proposition. Um, as a company, you might have a minute to do your pitch. We really want to hone into what your value proposition is. Okay, and you typically fall into one of three categories. You're either helping someone save time, save money, or make money, right? Um, I actually recently was talking to this business and I asked them, what did they do? And they went on a long rant about, well, we use data to do this and data this, data that, and so they didn't in the end tell me what they actually did, and that could have been save time for companies having X problem, or save money, or make money, and really in the end that's what you get, right? So um, see if you're in a business now, kind of try to gauge which bucket that you're in. Actually, for those that are in a business now, you can even type in the chat see, which category do you think you fall into? Now, you might do more than one, but there's always one that's kind of more primary than the other. Okay, great. Yeah. Continuing on, here's an example here. Just taking a survey of what people think. So this is a website building service. Do you think this saves money, saves time, or makes money? So you provide website building services. You can just type in the chat. Okay, yeah, I see a lot of make money. I see some save time. Sure, you can position it as like it saves time because you don't have to build it yourself, right? But really, nowadays you don't really need to learn how to code or do anything like that to and the more right answers make money, right? So it's supposed to provide your business an online presence, so that when people get their first impression of you online, they can see, what you do and how you help people and what problem you're solving, right? Next example is Costco, right? Save money, right? Um, they pride themselves on buying bulk. You get to save money, go on a treasure hunt and save money at the same time. And then we have, um, accounting services, right? Which you can say is you're saving time, because if you're not familiar with accounting, why fumble through that yourself? Just spend the little bit to get a contractor that's great at their job, and they'll just do all this bookkeeping stuff for you, right? So saves you a lot of time, especially if you're trying to fumble creating financial statements and doing all this. And am I doing this right? You don't want to get into that kind of circle of frustration. So saving you time. Okay, so a value proposition statement typically has who's it for? So who is your target market, right? And the more specific you are in this, the more useful it is. A lot of people, they kind of come into a conversation and they're like, yeah, everyone can use this. Okay, maybe everyone can, but are you building something or solving a problem for who? Who has the problem? Who would pay for this, right? So it's beneficial for you to really hone into who you're targeting. What is it? Okay, and what is the benefit, right? So three things, three elements in a value proposition statement, right? So your job as an entrepreneur is to, with as little resources as possible, test the above, right? So as an entrepreneur, you want to alleviate your own risk of the venture by testing different things, right? So let's say like you're a really good baker and you make really great cupcakes, right? Bring some samples to a party, let people try it out, get people's feedback. As opposed to, oh, let's just sink 100K, let's build a location and let's hire a bunch of people and let's get this going, right? So definitely what you want to do is lessen your own risk, right? Testing out your solution, in this case, cupcakes, and getting people's feedback and seeing what their point of view is. Okay. Okay, so an example. So this young teenager, he provides snow shoveling services. So for who? He actually targets seniors. He's in a neighborhood where there are a lot of seniors living around, a lot of homes, a lot of driveways that need shoveling. So he's targeting seniors. What is it? He's providing a snow shoveling service, right? And then he's what's the benefit? The benefit is that those that maybe more elderly and not physically able to, they can get their driveway shoveled, right? That's the benefit, right? Saves them time, energy, right? 3 things, right? Who's it for? What is it? And what's the benefit? I'm going to open it up to questions again in case there's anyone that wants to jump in. No? Oh, Golden.
So with everything going digital now, right? We have websites, we have social media accounts. What's the best way to present our value proposition with those 3 things? So what comes to mind for me is like an Instagram post that explains it, maybe a reel. But what's another way maybe that you might know that I probably never thought of that can introduce a value proposition?
Yeah, you know, it depends on what type of business you're thinking. Like, is this a B2C company you're selling to end consumers or B2B? But I mean, generally to start, you want to get that really qualitative feedback, right? And so posting something on Instagram, I mean, it can get you attention, but then it might also get lost in all the other messages out there. So, I mean, if you're fixing someone's problem, I would really find individuals who are could be potential customers and then just get their feedback. You know, hey, if I built this or if I provided this service to you or if I done this, is this something that you would actually pay for? Right? And just get their feedback, you know?
It's
You're
funny you
after
mentioned
very
that
early
today.
on, you're after quality over quantity.
It's funny you mentioned that today because I literally just started picking up the phone and calling people down the book, and I was literally asking them questions. So it's it's funny you said that. Thanks for validating. I'll definitely do that tomorrow morning because I called them after work, and usually people don't want to talk about work at that time.
Yeah, exactly. People don't want to talk about work, and in that phone call, if you come across as, "Hey, I'm trying to create a solution for a problem you may have. I just want your feedback. Is that okay? Can you spare 5 minutes?" Like most people will help, uh, especially if they're experiencing
Right, right.
that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Good question. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I'll move forward here. So again, who's it for? Whose problem are you solving? Who has the most pain? You know, in that snow shoveling example, yes, everyone can use a snow shovel for the driveway. Who wants to shovel snow, right? But there's one segment of customers that feels more pain than another. All right. So if you are able to hone into that and target those customers, you're able to solve the problem much more efficiently. And also ask yourself, is your solution a vitamin or a painkiller? All right. So is this something that people need because they experience pain? So you're a painkiller, or are you a vitamin, meaning, it looks kind of cool and sure I can buy it, but I don't kind of need it. Right. So you know, ask yourself, is it a nice to have or do people want this? And what you're trying to gauge really is the urgency of your potential customers, right? If they have urgency, there's a much more higher level chance of success because you're trying to solve a pain that people are like screaming with their hair on fire. I need to solve this, right? So, you know, think of back in COVID and there was a mask shortage, right? And then if you had masks to sell, I mean, you would sell out really easily, right? So, okay, want to talk a little bit about the business plan now. Now, whenever we hear business plan, we think of those like kind of 30-page of text that's really long and boring to read through. Uh, you know, and you know, for the most part, um, think of the business plan really as a checklist of things that you haven't really thought of yet or you've already thought of and have a plan, right? So there's different areas listed here: competitors, operations, strategies, goals. You know, have you thought through how you're going to execute? right? So if you have a social media strategy to get your product out into the market, imagine you're going to a bank loan. You're trying to get a bank loan from TD Bank, right? And you're trying to get money to build your business. They're like, "What's your marketing plan?" "Oh, I'm gonna sink 80% of my loan into social media in hopes it sells," right? That sounds so risky, right? But what if you came into that meeting and you said, "Well, you know what? I used a few $100 to test this for 3 straight months, and I'm able to get X number of customers from those $300. Now, if I can turn that into $30,000, I can probably 100x my customers just because I've tested it and I've done it before." There's a lot more confidence in that, right? And that goes into your business plan as to something that you've tested. You took a little bit of risk to try it, and you're able to extrapolate and say, "Hey, I'm pretty confident with my marketing plan here," right? Now, marketing is just one area of whole things, but that's what's got to be tested. Your different areas of your business, right? Okay, so your business plan, as I mentioned, think of it as a tool and a checklist for your own risk mitigation. And it's the same exercise that the person at the bank will be assessing while talking to you. It's their own risk mitigation. Did this guy test anything? Does this guy know what he or she's talking about, right? So um, think of it in that fashion. You're mitigating your own risk too, right? Because you don't want to be that example where like you just jump in with, I'm just going to pump money into social media, and then there's no results from it, and then what happens? Your one shot is gone, right? So, and a business plan should be a living document. So as you're building your business, things change. You learn something, you adapt, and so this business plan should always be updated with your latest findings, right? And it's useful to keep around because you might have other team members that will also be interested in, hey, where's this company headed? How are we going to execute, right? And so this document will really actually help you very much keep on track. Okay, I want to go back to, remember I talked about a little bit about the cons of entrepreneurship. There's that uncertainty. First point. Now, I want to go through these points because even though these are cons to the entrepreneurship journey, how can we mitigate those factors so that they're less of an impact, right? So I already touched on this a little bit, but uncertainty, like if you've used a little bit of resource to test your product or test your solution or test your strategy, you can actually definitely get more answers. So there's less uncertainty, right? Um, this is what we call a business model canvas. Think of it as a short version of your business plan, right? And it gets you to think about these factors that maybe you've never thought about, right? So I heard Alina mention another session on channels. That's actually one of the blocks, right? And if you come in there and you say, "Oh, I never thought of channels," well, okay, well, this is your opportunity to. You shouldn't miss it. That block shouldn't be blank, right? So um, you can look up what Google on Google, or Whitespace has their own version of business model canvas as well. So it asks you to touch on different areas here. Now, the important thing here about the business model canvas is not that you have stuff in it. It's that the boxes interconnect with each other. Okay, so keep that in mind. So, for example, um, you know, you have certain channels that you're going to go through to get more customers, but there's a cost to those channels. So if you look at the bottom left, it's cost structure, right? So if your channels costs aren't reflected in your cost structure, then you're missing something, right? So keep in mind, it's about how the boxes are interacting with each other here to make it more complete. Okay. Yeah, business model canvas, especially if you have partners, fill it out together. And then you can see where your differences are. And then that's a exercise in alignment too, making sure you and your partner are on the same page. Okay, so keeping on the point of uncertainty, industry benchmarking. This is a website that I highly recommend most people use. Compare your own performance to industry standards. So I'm gonna just shift over to a website now. I'm gonna stop showing that and I'll show everyone an example here. And let me know when you see a government website in front of you. Alina, just give me a confirmation you can see it. Okay, great. Financial performance data. This is actually a gold mine of data that people actually don't really tap into. And the opportunity here is like, let's say you're building a coffee shop. It allows you to see in terms of the industry, what does the industry metrics look like? And compare yourself there. So I'll go through an example right now. So I'm going to create a new report. I'm going to say it's $30K to $5 million range because I'm a small business for now, right? Canada is fine. All businesses, distribution by total revenue. I want it in percentages, and I'll search for an industry. So let's say I open a winery, or I think maybe wine is better. Oh, I just spelled it wrong. So wineries is 31213. Okay, so when you open a business, you have this kind of business code that the government actually forces you to have because they want to classify you, right? So that code, if you look up, let's say I open a winery, I want to see an industry report on wineries. When I create this report, I can see how others are doing relative to myself, right? So when I see cost of sales, oh, okay, so they're doing roughly 50% margins. And if I look at my own cost of sales, and cost of sales is like 80%, whoa, I need to find some way to lower the cost of my product, my inventory, right? Because industry wise, I'm way over, right? You can also see what companies are paying in terms of wages, how much. Now these are all percentage of revenue, right? So based on revenue is 100%. So to interpret this as 41% of revenues goes to the cost of the sale of the item. Okay. You can see things like how much are companies paying for rent, for repairs, professional fees, insurance. I got a quote on insurance for $5,000. Is that high? Is that low? No, right? So you can actually tap into a lot of Industry Canada metrics here to see how you're doing. Okay. Yeah, super useful tool here. I have the link in the slides. So, and you could also export this to Excel. So when you have your own accounting, you can do a side-by-side comparison. How did you do last year, performance-wise? And then also look for opportunities, right? Because like, let's say, wow, the industry spends way more on marketing than I do. Maybe I should be a bit more aggressive there, try to get more customers, right? And that's your next move, right? So industry benchmarking, super important. Any questions so far? I'll leave it here. That's a good start.
Hi, I know you said that you're gonna the slides are gonna be shared and that this link is inside the slides, but anyway, you can just drop it into the chat now.
I've
I
just
think
dropped
Alina
it.
just did.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, super useful site, regardless of the size of your business, right? You want to see relative to others how you do, maybe where your shortfall is, or maybe which initiatives you want to take. Okay, go to with the question.
Notice that it's not really progressive. Like, for example, digital marketing, things like that. There's not a lot of data on this. I searched it in, unless I used the wrong word, but I put like coaching, that didn't exist. Marketing, that existed, but there was like really small.
You're trying to search for like your own code, like what would apply, right? Is that what you tried to do?
So I went down to the end where you were for search for an
Yes.
industry, and then I used the keyword. So like marketing, coaching, digital AI, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But on my end, it didn't show up. Like marketing shows up, but that's marketing research. That's not a marketing agency.
Yeah. You can try the other one, the browse for industry. You can try this one. So here, you'll notice the first 2 digits is a higher level code. So like, which one of these industries does that belong to? And then you can keep searching until you hit the code that applies to you.
And that's on the same page? I never saw where you
Yes, if you change this to browse for an industry.
Okay.
So these are all the industries. So you should fall under somewhere in here. Maybe it's maybe it's professional services, right? Marketing services, right? So maybe it's under there, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good question. Anything else? Okay, great. I'm going to shift myself back to the PowerPoint. Okay, yeah, so I talked about uncertainty and then industry benchmarking. So you can see, you can lessen the uncertainty by comparing yourself to, what's out there already. Actually, through your research, you might think maybe, oh, well, I thought I'm going into this area, but margins are really, really slim. I didn't know that, and maybe it's something you choose not to go into anymore. Right? So use it as part of your research. Okay, the second con is loneliness, right? And so it's true what they say. It's lonely at the top. You're the leader. Sometimes you don't always have a sounding board, or sometimes you don't have anyone um, to bounce things off. But surround yourself with other people. Like even Y-Space themselves, it's a great entrepreneurship hub. You get to meet other founders, other entrepreneurs, and maybe you're in one of their programs where you're trying to build a business together and you can bounce things. They may not be in your company, but they kind of know what kind of shoes that they're or what you're going through, can offer some feedback, right? That being said, this is a quote that I found when I was traveling. I found it to be really true. Is when we are dreaming alone, it's only a dream. When we are dreaming with others, it's the beginning of reality, right? And so you can't do it all alone, right? So eventually you'll grow a team. You'll have people that are on the same mission as you, and collaborating together and moving together as a well-oiled ship, right? So you're the captain of the ship, right? So be prepared to have a team under you, and that's also more responsibility on you. So as the leader, you're responsible for other people's well-being too, right? So it's definitely not easy. And your team is not just those that are immediately hired in your company, but who's going to be your bookkeeper, who's going to be your corporate filer, who's going to be your legal person. If you're bringing stuff from overseas, who's going to be the person that takes care of export import questions for you, right? So, have all these professionals in place before you actually need them, right? And that's part of setting yourself up for success. You never know when you'll need them, and it'll be very useful for when you get into that kind of situation to just be able to pick up a phone and call someone. Okay, so continuing with setting up for success, work-life balance. This is something that I'm more creating awareness for the group. More from some of my own observations. You know, first point here is like, don't create a job for yourself, right? So you for example, you may be a passionate cook, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean you want to open a restaurant and then you cook for 18 hours a day for many, many years, right? So in that kind of scenario, you just basically created a job for yourself, right? So you're a cook, right? Yes, your name might be on the company, your name might be plastered on the title of the restaurant, but you're in there 18 hours a day or whatever it is. So as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as soon as you figure things out, try to empower other team members, right? So it might take a little tweaking. Like Goldie might say, "Oh, this social media strategy A didn't work, but B works now. So now I'm going to hire a junior marketer and show her how it's done, right?" And then take yourself out of there, right? So what you want to do is you want your business to be able to just run on its own. You don't want it to be all in one bag, all eggs in one basket, so to speak, where like you're the critical pillar, and if you're sick or you go on vacation, and then the team just crumbles, right? So that's what you don't want to happen, right? So empower others once you can, right? And focus on doing the expensive. You are the CEO, you are the founder. Do founder type stuff, right? I see a lot of times where it's the restaurant owner. They opened a restaurant, and every day they're doing like maybe carrying inventory or uh, uh, you know uh, buying this and buying, like, that person should focus on the overall trajectory of the business, not working in the operations, right? So you hire people to do that, right? So do the expensive work. So if it's do the $500 per hour job, not the $25 job, right? Because your time can be better spent. Okay, so Queen's Gambit example here. Remember, you as the founder, you're the entrepreneur. You're actually trying to be this person and not one of the chess pieces in your operations, right? And it should be that if you decide to step out or take a vacation, whatever, your business should be running fully on its own. That's the ideal scenario, something to aim for. Okay, so that's all from myself. Open to taking any questions from the group. Just checking timing. Okay, just at an hour.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yankee. Really, really appreciate that. Perfect. Let's open the floor for questions, just making sure there's none in the chat that I've missed. Okay, none in the chat, so feel free to just unmute yourself, ask your question. Yankee, to get things started, I'm actually going to bounce off a question that Goldie asked initially. With your own experience with OpenAI, and you spoke about uncertainty, you spoke about loneliness, work-life balance. How did that come into play? What made you decide that, okay, this is what I want to do, leave like a secure 9 to 5 job, and this is the career path I want to choose?
I think it was several factors for me. At the beginning, I had helped another growing company continue to grow, a very successful company in Toronto in fintech. But I wanted to also, create my own purpose, and kind of follow how I want to change things, right? And so it was that combined with like I enjoy challenge in the first place, and when I first started, I didn't know if I had it quite honestly, right? But I kind of took on the challenge and just challenged myself to learn. I kind of threw away all my assumptions. Like it's very easy to, let's say if you're a programmer for 20 years, come in and say, "Oh, I know everything about programming," but I try to be an empty vessel and just accumulate knowledge from those that have succeeded and have done it and been there and done that, and just learn and challenge myself, right? And it was a hard journey. Actually, some of the Y space programming for startups and early stage companies, I had to take those several times, to be quite honest. One, because the timing, sometimes like the timing, it didn't apply yet, but later it did, and that's when it clicked. But a lot of that content was super useful for me to kind of get started. And so it was a combination of challenging myself, wanting a purpose in my work. And then that's why I chose to try it out because I know worst case scenario, the job will be there, right? you know, so it's not the end of the world. I can try, fail, okay, and then come back later if I want to.
The other consideration too is that if you're working for somebody else, you either have 100% of a job or 0% of a job. And if you're self-employed, you can have any fraction in between. So work-life balance is a little easier to maintain if you're working for yourself, although in the early years, you're probably putting in, the joke is you can work part-time and eat 12 hours in the day you take off and the other 12 you work. But eventually you do have a bit better control through self-employment.
Yeah, exactly. And as the boss, you can choose your own hours. You can even choose which customers to fire if you don't want to work with them. That is kind of like the beauty of it is you choose who you want to work with and you call the shots, right? Um, of course, when we're starting out and maybe we don't have as many customers, that may not be the case, but if you can get yourself into a situation where that is the case, that's great. You can just choose who you want to work with, right?
Awesome. Hilary has a question in the chat. Has there ever been a time when you shared your business value proposition and someone didn't understand it at all?
Oh, so many times. So many times. Actually, I don't even want to mention it. It's so embarrassing. Like, I not want anyone to hear it. So, like, this was something that was a work in progress over and over and over. So, don't be afraid if you're in that situation where you're trying to get it right and people aren't understanding, because it's normal to go through that. And actually, as I was working on it, um, it's I'm glad I kept working on it because I kept refining it and kept honing into that message. Because one time I was actually at the airport and I was in the security line to get my security stuff checked, and it was the Nexus line. I had the Nexus card. Right? So I was in line, and then I noticed in front of me was actually one of the dragons from Dragon's Den standing in front of me in line. And so then I got, okay, what's my value proposition again? What is it? Drawing a blank. But you practice, and then after we went through security, I had a short chat with them. I told them what we did. In the end, nothing materialized from that, but I think it was good practice to suddenly put me on the spot to see if I can communicate that out there. So it was still very useful. So I encourage everyone to keep trying.
That's an interesting story, Yankee.
Mm-hmm.
Another question in the chat. How did you raise funds in early stages? Did you take any help at this stage?
Yeah, early stage. So our company was B2B. We sold to other businesses, and so I think it's very important to work very closely with your customer, especially if it's a business. If it's a solution that's designed to help them, you keep them in the loop. They're actually part of designing that solution. You can you it's much less likely for you to build the wrong product, essentially, right? Many times I've heard people think, oh, if I built this app, people will just use it. And then they spent like time and resources building this app, and in the end, there was no market need for it, right? And so you don't want to be that story, right? And so how do you raise funds? Like at first, it's more like proving a concept, right? So you listen really deeply to the problem that's at hand, right? You draw up a plan to tackle that problem, and then you say, hey, let's build a prototype, or MVP in this case, minimum viable product, and test this out to see if it solves your problem. It's not meant to be pretty. It's not meant to be completely finished. It's not meant to be bug free, but you test it and you try it, and if it worked great, then it solves your problem. You're on the right track, and that actually, when you're talking about raising funds, people are just again thinking risk mitigation, right? So if you've tested, you have some results. That's way more encouraging than I haven't tested anything. It's just a guess, right? So, and then Ella, I think.
Hey, thank you. So I've got a question regarding the MVPs, right? I pretty much understand the concept of that. You're building a product and you want to see was a minimally viable product. Now, my concern or my question is when you were pushing a service into the market, how do you build a minimally viable service, so to say, right? How do you show at the very least this service that's viable? Is that making any sense?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, before you think of pushing things to market, help one customer first, right?
Okay.
One can turn to 3, that can turn to 9, can turn to 20, right? So help one first, then help them realize the benefit. Oh, wow, this either helped me make money, save time, or save money. This is great, right? Now you have testimonials, you have a case study you can rely on. And then you go to customer 2 and you say, look what we did here. We helped them save $5 million in their first year of operations. We just want to do that here, right? And so it becomes much more convincing. But the first one's the hardest. You need someone to kind of take a chance, work with you to build out that solution. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's basically just dipping your toes in the water and just taking it from there.
Yeah, keep in mind, like, if this is truly a problem that exists, companies want to solve it. People want to solve it. Right? And so if you're there and you're saying, hey, I just want to solve this for you, why wouldn't they offer you at least some feedback, right?
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was very informative.
Okay. And is it Nikisha? I think Nikisha next.
I seen Gold's hand up first, though.
Okay, Gold's up next.
Thank you so much for explaining more about Open House AI. I used to do interior design, so I can definitely see how it can benefit the market in a space of product development and getting the consumer to understand what's going on and how they can spend money with you. But I actually put my hand up because of Ella and what she said.
Okay.
I know you guys call it an MVP product, but I call it a beta program. And when I did my certification in enterprise thinking design with IBM, they call it a sponsor user. So basically, you bring on someone for a certain amount of months at a time. They suggested 9 months, depending on the product, but you let the user build out the program for you, which is, I think, amazing. I've done it many times with some of my training programs. And whenever I bring on a beta program user, they get a discounted price. It's specialized to them. And then you kind of like let them know, hey, this is your playground where you can let me know your challenges, and then I can create solutions and outcomes for you. And then bringing on their testimonial to the market really helps long term, because they appreciate the fact that you took all that time to kind of figure out their needs and potential within whatever they're working on. So that's what I wanted to like just say with Ella, where because she's a service, I'm a service too, so I had to figure that out the long way, but it works.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Gold. I just wanted to throw a follow-up question or comment in there. Thank you, really. I appreciate you chiming in with that. Now, in the instance where your service is business to business and it's pretty expensive and intensive and spent, let's look at the business of enterprise integration, right? Enterprise resource planning systems. That
Okay.
is a
Yeah.
very expensive and extensive
Yes.
project, right?
Yes.
So how would you,
Correct.
because that's kind of what I struggle with, right? I understand the concept of, having a resource user, but this is a really expensive and extensive service. So how
Yeah,
do
those are.
you go about without just really
Mhm.
tanking your capital? If you're going to
Mhm.
start with a resource user, are you going to build them? Would they be paying for that service? Like, how would that work?
Yeah, I mean, an ERP is definitely a big project, and sometimes companies use only part of that software,
Mhm.
and not the whole thing. But it comes down to Ella. If you propose that they spend X money on these items, what do they get out of it, right? Like if you're telling me, okay, something now takes me 40 hours to do. After I implement this software, that comes down to 10 hours. That's a measurable benefit that you can say, look, you're getting this and you pay this. That makes sense to me, right? So we can't just go out there and say, oh, let's just do this for the sake of doing. What's the ROI? What's the end benefit? And then again, are you saving them time, saving them money, or making them money, right? One of those pots, right? And so you're at least attempting a hypothesis on what the results would be. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay, it does open more questions and conversations, but hey, thanks for the comments and the contributions. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure it does for sure. It's not an easy question, especially with complex solutions like that. So
It is.
yeah.
I'm currently, I've done a couple of that in my current employment. And
Okay.
I've been, researching and seeing how I can take that to market personally, because working for an organization on both ends, both the vendor and the client, I've seen where clients and vendors typically struggle. And I've been able to build solutions to mitigate for those, right? But still, I'm still
Yeah.
in the process of researching and figuring out this part, go to
Yeah.
market. How do I create a minimal viable service? And just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. So thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if the software solution is out there already, you want to leverage what's out there, right? And I think for you also long term, you want to decide, are you on the delivery / implementation side of things, or are you on the sales side of things where like you have a vendor and you're trying to look for the right partner for them, right? So, or it could be both, right? So you can, there's a software vendor, you can find a new customer where you sell the solution and at the same time implement as well, right? Nothing's
That's why I said at the start, it's pretty extensive, right? The more I go into this, the more there are different components that I continue to consider and push out, but it's worth it, to build out all of the possibilities and, continue to brainstorm and see how that can be mitigated. Yeah, but I think the open source market, right? Open source systems, ERP systems, they're a great tool to market. And I think that's where I want to hinge my services for now.
Yeah, for
Anyway.
sure. And especially since you have some experience already, right? You can talk to
Absolutely.
that,
Yeah.
right? So, hey, look what I did at X company. before it was this, after they're this, and this was the benefit, and then the ROI is there.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Nikisha.
Okay, so I'm going to leverage your amazing background. I've seen you are a CPA and a PMP. Um, so one of the things that I'm beginning to realize heavily, especially with integrating technology in my business, is project management. But more or less, I want to ask you, you spoke about when you were creating the software for the home building industry, and I'm more interested to find out how did you go about identifying your markets and customer needs? Because you did mention the testing and validating of the business idea. So I just really wanted to hear your insights and the approach that you took, especially from a project management perspective.
Yeah, this is in relation to, I think in the chat someone asked. So this is very closely the Mina asked. This is a failure of market research. Go back. Oh, okay, yeah. So someone mentioned, how do you bring your product to market and it fails? Any pivoting strategy? So when you're collecting feedback and you want to keep things open ended, that I personally don't like surveys where you check yes or no. You have 5 questions, yes or no. It doesn't give any context to the problem. So not only are you asking for feedback at every iteration of your product or on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, whatever cadence you guys set up, but you're also listening for the problem and listening for, in case that this doesn't work out, what else you can go to. Because really, we all have our biases and we all have our assumptions, and then we kind of stumbled upon, wow, this is a even bigger problem. I didn't even know about this. It took someone in that industry to really tell us how deep these problems are, and well, I think we can actually solve it, right? And because both my co-founder and I was not in that industry, I think we came with a different perspective, so that actually helped us.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the feedback on the checking in, like when do you collect that feedback? 'Cause I think we typically tend to, well, I'll speak for myself. I'll put, my product, my service into the market. But I'm only typically tending to follow up like once or twice, but never on that ongoing basis. And I think that would be a huge game changer for me. Because it's almost something I heard you say. It's almost like at the same time I am trying to receive the information, the data-driven approach, I can also hear things that potentially they're saying to help tailor the solution, if I'm correct with what you're saying.
Yeah, it could be tailor the solution. It could be a feature upgrade. It could be a
Okay.
second tier of service, or it could be something you just totally pivot into. Right?
Okay.
So it can. But what you're doing is you want to cast a wider net. Listen to, because think about it this way, especially if you're B2B, like they live what they live every day,
Yeah.
right? And when they have a problem or they're saying, oh, this takes so long, or what, like they want to talk about their issues. And if you come across with, hey, I'm gonna attempt to solve this for you, like they should be very open to it, right? What you want to avoid is like you have one meeting with them. Okay, I've written down some requirements, right? Then go back in your basement, program for 5 months, and then come back and say, I got the solution. I'm going to sell this to you now. And then meanwhile, they weren't in the loop and, they weren't working with you closely. It doesn't solve a bunch of other stuff, right? So, that's what you don't want, right? So,
And do you have like a specific project management tool that you like or any recommendations?
no, not specifically. I'm pretty agnostic about it. There's a lot of really good tools out there now. And of course, Excel's always been
Yes.
an option out there, classic, right? But yeah, do take advantage of project management tools out there.
Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. So I know there was Faya's question, but Yankee, you just answered that. Are there any other questions for Yankee? So I know we discussed a couple of things, so perhaps folks are just, going over all that you've imparted today, Yankee, but I have a quick question for you. In your experience as an advisor, you've had the opportunity to work with different founders. What are some common pitfalls that you've seen, common mistakes that you've seen founders make over and over again?
Yeah, I mean, I do see same things over and over. What's very common is, for example, if the founder has a technical background, you know, that they keep working on the product and the product's never finished. It's never perfect. Perfection is the opposition to progress, really. All right. So you get those perfectionist types that keep on working the product. There's not a lot to lose. Get the MVP out there, get someone to use it, get someone to pay for it, right? I mean, if it solves a problem, you should get paid, right? It doesn't have to work the best on day one, right? And that's very common. Also, I find with most companies, companies also think about finances, accounting, corporate file, like they think of that last, right? Technology is super exciting, doing sales is super exciting. Who wants to think about keeping and stuff like that? But that stuff's important too, right? It's like keeping your house tidy while you work, almost, right? Keep that in mind. Bookkeeping is not the challenge. You want to do projections. You want to set some goals for yourself and your team, So I really highly encourage you to do, your own financial model. What does your business model look like? Fit that into the finances and project out, set some goals. What are we doing for 2024? Like, how many customers are we going to get? What are we trying to achieve? Right? So it's a goal setting is also super important. Keeps yourself accountable and your team accountable.
That's awesome. Those are some great tips. Perfect. Any other questions for Yankee? Just want to quickly scan the chat as well, making sure I haven't missed anything. Goldie, go ahead.
Question about where we are in the market right now, economically, how the world is shifting or seems to be shifting into this space of unknownness. For entrepreneurs, what suggestions do you have when it comes to the new era, which is AI and technology and things like that? How do you think we can leverage the market right now, especially when it comes to consumers and agencies? Because those are my two ideal markets right now, and would love to know how to navigate this chaotic realm. And hearing that you started with COVID and had your situation and challenges going on, what are some things that you wish you've known then and would love for you to tell me them now so I don't have to go through them?
Yeah, the world's definitely changing faster and faster. I think as technology becomes more and more accessible and lower cost, you'll notice like the cost of technology constantly is going down, more competitors and more features. I think it's an era where it's really allowing the entrepreneur to really take advantage of that, right? Leverage software whenever you can, automate things when you can, and then what used to take a 10-member team maybe now takes 3, right? Speaking of AI, there's a lot of tools out there, and people are making stuff all the time. Keep up to date and take a look at what's out there and leverage what's already existing, as opposed to reinventing the wheel if you can. So people are finding really creative ways to use things. Like I know like this digital marketing company that I was helping, they're really tapping in tools to things like, and this is still being worked on, but like something like text to video. You type in some text and AI turns that into a video for you. Like it's so amazing, right? Like used to take how many people to create that, right? So, leverage what's out there, and service your customers that way as well.
Thank you. I noticed there's a lot of, like you said, options. And from my research, a lot of companies or existing businesses right now, specifically with AI, I feel they aren't using it to the capacity that it could be going. For me, I'm all about the future, I'm all about legacy. So, my whole pivot is how can I make humans be human again using AI? And one thing that I found with agencies and businesses is that they actually were having a high turnover rate in their departments when it comes to engagement online, because to manually do all the engagements, 8 hours a day, your eyes to the screen, and then you're not hitting certain numbers is almost impossible. Whereas AI can do that 20,000 times more in a
Yeah, and that might be the opportunity because you might be on the forefront and know very much about technology out there, whereas the manager in that solution in that situation, maybe they're not even looking, they're not exposed to this, and then there's an opportunity for you to come and either as an advisor or as a consultant or a business consultant just come in and say, hey, look, I'm gonna make this go 10 times faster. Here's my proposal. And there's absolutely opportunity. And just because technology moves fast, it doesn't mean all businesses move fast. And that's an opportunity in itself as well. Right?
And I guess, who do you suggest speaking to when it comes to corporates directly? Like, who do you think I should really knock on their door and not go home until they answer?
For what purpose?
For the purpose of what I just mentioned, engagement, because I'm working with smaller businesses, influencers, coaches, service providers, but I really want to get into the corporate side because, of course, corporate can definitely benefit from this feature. But like you said, they are really unaware and would love to know maybe a strategy that you might, like an idea that you might have where I can present this idea and have that being known in the industry.
Well, that's the challenge for everyone nowadays, right? Like everyone's trying to capture our attention. You can only give it to so many. We're constantly being sold to, if you can somehow stand out, if a past experience or you have a case study in which you helped this company do X, these benefits that might resonate with them, right? Keep in mind, like if people don't, going back to another person's question, like if they don't know they have a problem, you need to create the awareness for that as well, right? So, hey, big corporation, this other corporation is doing it this way. You could be doing it as quick as well. Banks are famous for that, right? Banks don't move until one of them does something and the other ones follow, right? So that's the opportunity there.
That's the annoying part.
Yes,
but I'll be here. I'll be here
Mhm.
floating in my boat waiting for which island to dock on first. So thank you so much for your expertise and insight.
For sure. You're welcome.
Okay. A couple of questions in the chat. What did you find to be the best resources to assist with writing a good business plan?
Mm, I don't think we used a specific tool or anything like that, but we did start with the business model canvas, which is like the compact version, right? And then in the actual business plan, you can elaborate on details, have more diagrams and things like that, right? So it's like an expanded version of it. So I would start with your business model canvas, and I think Alina probably has an example somewhere as well. and start there, work on that, or you can just Google it like directly. Right? So, um, you know, try to fill it out yourself. What are you missing in those gaps? Run it by someone else, and see where you go from there. But I think that's a good starting point for any business plan.
And just to build on that, there are lots of business plan templates out there. So I know Futurepreneur has a really great template.
Yes, I do.
So does BDC, and they're all free. So I can share some links in the chat here. Those are essentially a good starting point as well. So you can draft something out, and you can set up consultation calls, and they help fine tune your business plan as well. So that's an additional resource that you can look into. Okay, so one more question. I understand your startup uses AI. So initially, how did you develop the applications? In-house, is it in-house or outsourced it? Your experience and challenges while developing.
So just to be clear, I'm not the one that has a technical background, so I can't answer some of those questions. But on the journey that we went on, we outsourced until we had funds to not outsource, right? And so that's just part of growing a company and growing pains. You might outsource it to a development company in the short term, maybe to even create your MVP. And if you have a good concept and you have several customers giving you letter of interest because they're like, oh, this is great, right? Then you dump more resources into creating a more functioning model, right? So that's just how it goes. And I think there's the follow-up question to that is how frequently you change your business plan. That's a great question. Yeah. Often. We come in with assumptions. We come in with, oh, we think we're going to try this. Maybe through your trying, it didn't work, or you found something better. I'll give you an example. So originally, when we try to sell our product, we went to these conferences, right? And we had a booth there, and we're just hoping the right customer comes talk to us. Like we were like two lost puppies, to be quite accurate. And then the next year we approached it differently. So like you talk about channels. What channels are you using? Test it. Doesn't work, move on. This one works, double down on that one.
Got it. Ella, I saw that you raised your hand, so wondering if you have a question or was it answered already?
Hey, no, I think it's all answered. I wanted to just chime in regarding the question that Goldie had asked earlier regarding who to speak to specifically for corporate when you want to just get your foot in the door, right? I wanted to say there, depending on the industry, is really just to look for two types of people. There are some who influence the decisions, and there are others who actually make the decisions, right? So it's really to start communications with whoever at those corporate companies, and then begin to navigate from there to determine who are the influencers and who are the actual decision makers that could really push through your service or your product.
Yeah, those are excellent points. With any B2B sales, especially with large corporate, it gets more complex. There's a lot more stakeholders and a lot more hands in the pot, right? So even if the problem that you're solving for that person, even if he wants it, now the CFO says no, then what happens, right? Because they're holding the money, right? So you almost have to come into those situations with different value propositions for different parties, right? For this person, it will save you time. That same solution, CFO, it'll actually save you money, right? So
yeah. And there are actually people I've seen who they may not be direct decision makers, but they certainly are able to influence these decisions, and they're great to have in your corner and to push your solution through.
Yeah, try to find a champion. So somewhere in there that's an advocate for your product because they think it's so great, right? And yeah, try from that standpoint. That way, that person internally will fight for you.
100%. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. So Yankee, Anthony has a couple of questions in the chat. So let's take the first one and we'll go along. How did you raise the $1.5 million in seed funding?
So you know, for us, we got a decent amount of traction, right? So nothing speaks louder than having customers, right? Having revenue, right? So you know, when you've proven, and this goes back to like de-risking the opportunity, right? If someone has enough customers backing you, you know, the investment becomes a lot easier to get, right? Because you're onto something, essentially, is what they're saying, right? And if all these customers are saying, "Hey, you have something," then the investor was like, "Oh, they have the dollars to prove it." Then you know, it makes the decision a lot easier.
Perfect.
How many no's did I? Lots of no's, tons of no's, too many no's. So that's normal. Just in case you were wondering. So yeah, many no's. Expect many no's, and that's okay. That's part of the process. You know, it's like any relationship. You're just trying to find the right fit, right? And it's a business relationship, right? So.
Okay, a couple of other questions within this message. How long did it take you to close? What kind of traction were they specifically looking for? And what are some tips to close from a venture capitalist?
So I would say expect around 8 months or so if you're starting from scratch. So control your timing so that it works out that way. You want to have conversations and you're going to have pitches and stuff like that. But all that over 8 months or so is some safe timing. I get alarmed when I work with an entrepreneur. They're like, "Yeah, we're gonna raise this money next month." Who have you talked to? Oh, I have a list. You know, it's you know, it's like any relationship, right? You need time to build it, and you need to kind of update them and show momentum, right?
Got it. Okay, regarding exit strategy, how did you go about it, and any inputs should I think about it at starting stages of the startup?
You know, exit strategies is definitely something that's always being thought about, like whether you're beginning stage or later stage, right? And again, like it's about I'll give you an example. This company that I'm helping right now, they're in women's health specifically. They're in areas that you know either for women it's hard for them to get care in these areas because there's specific women issues, right? So they're a platform that does that, and then they notice within the market, you know, there's this other company that does things for women, but in postpartum, post and pre-pregnancy, right? So in terms of women's health, you know, they kind of fit together as good partners, right? Well, actually, another bigger player that's in general health bought that other company. So, you know, in terms of where you are position wise and what's in the market, you can see what's a good complement, you know, and then you can think of your exit strategy that way. Who would want to buy? And who, when they buy you, 1+1=3? Because there's just that synergy there.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions for Yankee? Okay, Yankee, it seems like we're all caught. Oh, let's see. All right, that's
Good feedback.
Gina sharing her. Thank you for that, Nina. Perfect, Yankee. It seems like we're all caught up on questions. just as one final question, I know you already shared one book with the founders in this group, but if you have any other resources, it could be books, podcasts, a productivity hack, any key resources that you'd like to share with the group today.
I'm a big fan of books just because like you can get a lot of knowledge within a very short read. So this other book called Venture Deals, I really liked. I'll paste it in the chat here. And it really equips you to know, what's in contracts, in partnerships. You're working with legal, and you have investors and things like navigating that whole thing. It's not so easy. So yeah, it's not that long of a read, but it actually is very informative, and there's actual real examples of how people um, put these contracts together. You talk about exit strategy, right? So that's in there as well.
Venture Deals, amazing. I haven't read that one. Going to look into it. Awesome. Well, Yankee, thank you so much for the session, and thank you for also very openly sharing about your own journey as a founder. About